Called to Serve features real stories from police officers. Episodes may include descriptions of traumatic events, including physical harm, death, emotional experiences, or other sensitive topics. Discretion is advised.
I'm Sergeant Angie Tetley.
And I'm the best part of your day, Constable Brennan Martin.
And this is Called to Serve.
Let's go.
Previously on Part 1.
Today we have Acting Inspector Scott Neilson, who is also the Staff Sergeant of 8th District. You started in Class 130 around Christmas 1999, and so you've been around a long time.
I think you have a very unique career in the fact that you have spent the whole time on patrol. Like from day one, like you're always on patrol, and I'm very excited to have you here and to tell your story.
We now return to Part 2 of Called to Serve with Staff Sergeant Scott Neilson.
You have another example of when you were in one district about a little girl that was killed.
Right.
And that tell us about that story and how you sort of deal with the sort of trauma on top of trauma and how you have dealt with that as a patrol career.
I remember, I think it was in the summertime, I can't remember. I just know it was a very, very sunny day, and a call had come in that there'd been a bad accident happened down near the Calgary Tower. There'd been a piece of sheet metal that hadn't been secured on top of a neighboring building that had come off during a windstorm or something, and a poor little girl had been hit with this thing just off to the side. And I believe a couple of our traffic members were right away, but I was like third out. I know they were on one side of those things, and you kind of get to that point, you're trying to keep the public back, and yet you can see not too far away kind of the ramifications and the results of what had happened. You're just trying to think, stay on task there and be like, my job is to be over here, keep people back. And it's just, you can't, you just kind of keep looking from time to time because your brain is constantly registering these things that you're just not ready to see. And yeah, it was just, as I said, I mean, it was one of those things where it's like, you wish, and I feel for the two that saw it even before I did, that were right out there right away. But yeah, it's just one of those things where as much as they tell you that you're going to see these things, until you actually do, it's a whole nother sort of level of, I guess, experiencing that. So yeah, it was tough for sure. Right. And of course, anyone who's got small children in that, and you see that someone completely, they're.
Yeah, I have to say that, and I often talk about this with our participants that run with a recruiter or people that are very interested in the life as a police officer, is that TV gets it exactly right for the most part, right? So, but it's in 2D, right? And you can see the stuff, you become desensitized to that stuff because it's so available out there. But the one thing that it doesn't capture is emotion and trauma from the people around you in a real situation. In saying that, and because you've been a lifelong patrol guy, super respected, and you're out at every major call, either as the investigator all the way up to now as the supervisor, the way that you are in the street, you've dealt with a ton of trauma. The average person, they say, experiences one or two types of incidents throughout their life, but that police officers, it's right around 500 to 600. But a guy like you, because you are a go guy, I'm very curious how you deal with all the trauma that you've experienced.
Well, I think for the most part, for the longest time, I think I just kind of ignored it, right? I just sort of, it's funny because you don't think that you're kind of changing during this whole process, right? I mean, you still go work out, you do your regular things, but I know that, I mean, my family was telling me probably years before I actually sort of kind of came to the realization that things were different. Like, they're just in your approach to things and your attitude to things changes. And, I know there's that book that we all get, and I don't know if they still get it, about, what is it, emotional survival in law enforcement?
For sure.
Gil Martin's book.
Yeah, it's a great
book. I remember getting that in a course at one time and thinking, like, gee, this sounds very familiar to like, oh, I do that.
Yeah,
and,
I see bits of myself
bits of myself in that right there. And then you have your family tell you things when you respond a certain way at a family dinner or something, and it's like, you've changed or you're whatever. And you're like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm
the
same guy.
I'm the same guy, right? And
but you're not.
Yeah, you're not. And you do your best to try to stay normal and stuff. But again, it just, you kind of retreat. And again, I probably didn't handle it very well. I did my best to try to keep life and work separate and all that stuff. But I mean, you don't. And you kind of gravitate more to I did kind of gravitate more to that sort of comforting world of your team and your members and stuff like that. And in hindsight, I probably would do things a lot differently and a lot better than I did. But yeah, it was tough. I mean, I tried, like I said, I did my best to just try to, ignore it. Ignore it was my thing, right? Just kind of move on and don't really try to let it register. And it just kind of chips away at you, actually.
Does it ever come out every once in a while where it just sort of oozes out and you're like, oh, I haven't thought about you for a while?
Yeah, I mean, it's not anything in specific, but I knew in terms of my reaction, right? I mean, I had some things happen and it was more or less with my reaction. And you would do things that, just in how you'd react. Like I had some reactions with my kid, just growing up, if he was trying to get under my skin, because I used to joke with him all the time as he was getting into his teenage years and that, like, oh no, I appreciate the pushback, right? That shows me you're having your own brain, your own mind and stuff like that, right? But a couple times if I wasn't, I'd kind of react, I'd kind of react harshly to it and that, and he'd be like, hey, like, easy, and it'd be like, sorry, man, like, it was just one of those things where it's like, and again, I know we'll probably get into it, but it was one of those things where I'd have to catch myself in that type of thing and try to get out of that sort of spiral down type of thing, where it's like anytime my environment would be somewhere that I didn't feel I had kind of control over it, I could tell in my reaction, right? Like it was more involved with like just my temper and my own response to things and kind of.
So one of those environments that you talked about where like scary things happen to us when we're on patrol, right? And you feel unsafe sometimes. And you mentioned one story about the party bus. That was probably one of those environments or times that probably sent you off in a different direction.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably one of the main first ones that really, as I said, it came in kind of as an innocuous party bus parked in front of us downtown, right at 10x4. You both know the location. Yeah. Bars gone through many different incarnations over the years. Party bus in what was then, there was a liquor store there and a Subway and all the rest. Young people coming in, stealing from the store and all the. So we were right nearby, as like on TV. Oh, we're right around the corner.
Yeah.
Right, and we were, and so we got there, and it was pouring rain. I remember that it was rainy on a Sunday night, and here was this party bus, and you could see young people like all over the place, right? And just as we got out of the car, somebody stuck their head out the back of the bus and basically told us in no uncertain terms what we could do to ourselves. And
you're number one, right? Old Steve Austin.
Right? Yeah, absolutely, right? And so it's like, okay, well, let's go see what the deal is. And so we kind of came around to the side of the bus, and there was probably, my partner at the time was no small person, so he's kind of going on.
You're not a small guy either.
No, but I'm a talker at this point. So, but he's up and on the bus, and we're like, we just want to go to the back and talk to this individual. And again, in hindsight, not the best decision that we made, but so we went to the back, and he sort of grabbed him and said, come on with us. We got, of course, buddy in the back suddenly didn't have a lot to say when we were going to talk to him about it. And as we turned around to go back up the bus, if there was a sound you could attribute to a tornado developing behind us, you could hear people start to, what the F kind of thing. And so by the time we got to the front of the bus, someone said to my partner with a friend, you can't do that, and grabbed him, and I stopped her. She clocked me. It became a 1014 in this tiny walkway of the bus. And by the time we got off onto the sidewalk, two of her friends were jumping on my back. I remember getting my face scratched and trying to get away from that. And there's like full beer cans like flying. And I just remember getting out into the middle of the road with these two people on top of me. Beer cans are flying everywhere. And I mean, we had to call code 200, right? I mean, it was like, but yeah, in hindsight, it was just like that sort of picture with the swearing and the chaos and, that whole sort of like
the mob mentality
and the fog of war. It just became something that just kind of went crazy really quickly. And so, I know after that, it was like, Yeah, that was one of those things where that change in my environment and not having no control and anything like that. I mean, everything worked out in the end and nobody was seriously hurt, but yeah, that was one of the first ones that really sort of like stayed permanently on the file.
And those types of calls, those types of disturbances, and you talk about a code 200, that's officer needs help right now. These are the types of things that happened on a nightly basis in the city. I know that you went to 6th District, then you got promoted, then you went to the arrest processing unit. What a lot of people don't know is that you're a very resilient guy. You'd never take the easy route. There's so many different stories to talk about today that we just can't get into them all, but you're the kind of guy that the public won't know and a big chunk of the service won't know that you could have taken the easy route a couple of times, and you did not do that. You were always patrol. And ultimately, you ended up going downtown to District 1 as the bike sergeant. And if you could describe that experience, and who's that guy?
Well, the illustrious now Inspector Travis Jessica made mention of it in his podcast about these animal horns. And so I couldn't help but want to bring down this little fella here that when I joined the bike team back in 2018, one of the members on our team, Matt Tater had a turtle on his bike as his horn. And initially I thought it was kind of silly, right? It was just kind of like, what is that?
We're supposed to be professional.
Is that the word you used, silly there, Inspector?
Yeah, I'm sure it was exactly that. Right? But I'll tell you, I have never in my entire policing career seen something that would break the ice in relation to any situation we were at. We could be in the middle of dealing with a bunch of criminals at a disturbance, or from your time on the beats, a disturbance in Olympic Plaza, anything.
Like lifetime criminals.
Back alley, lifetime criminals. But they saw that and it was like, hey, can I honk your horn? Right? And it was kind of an icebreaker. And it's like, are you going to be good if you do that? And they're like, yeah. It's like, fill your boots. Right? So to see these people in the middle of a disagreement with the cops going over and honking these little horns, there was a turtle, a panda bear, like all kinds of little things that we kind of had a sort of like a badge of honor after a while. I was finally the last one to get one because I thought, stoic, I'm the supervisor. I got to make sure I maintain this, whatever. And even my wife was like, man, don't be such an old fuddy-duddy. Like, get one, right?
I don't think I knew that guy, because the guy I remembered had that on the front of his bike, and every year at Christmas, you had the antlers on.
Yes, that part I did love to do. I always found a way to stick the deer antlers into my helmet.
His heart grew 2 sizes that day.
Yeah. No, I'm a Christmas guy for sure, but that was always something I loved, was to, around that time in November, throw those antlers into the holes in my helmet. And that was another one too. That was number one too. I remember we stopped a guy one time at Chinook Mall, and someone took the picture going by on Reddit or something. And I remember the comments were like, wow, this guy must have a great sense of humor and stuff like that. Just people's reaction again to just showing that you're not just a robot or whatever. You can have some fun. You can laugh at yourself. You can still be professional.
Makes you more approachable.
Just more approachable, right? And it was more, like I said, it was more just for the public and just people being like, hey, love that.
My best memories was seeing that smile on your face, and you all bundled up, but I could still see the smile through your goggles and all that stuff, and your antlers and all that stuff.
Loved it. Yep.
It was.
Even when my toes were freezing and my fingers felt like they were going to fall off, it's like I'll do that all day long.
I remember from our previous conversation, you were up on Aviation Boulevard and you were having a coffee and you got some unsettling news. And then just before we started today, you talked about voicemail.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes things happen that you're not really expecting. And I know everyone has situations when their parents get older, right? So by no means I'm saying this is some kind of like crazy story, and not everyone in our service has something that's happened that's similar. But I remember in January, staff placements had just been announced. And I found out on the 4th of January that I was going to go to 8th District and do the staff job. And my dad at the time, even though he'd been diagnosed with lung cancer, he had stage 4 lung cancer, but he was going through that, and he had his checkup that day, and they said, hey, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. You're doing really well, right? And so we talked on the phone a little bit, and I said that night, yeah, I'm going to 8. I'll be 10 minutes from home. It's a bit of a different job, Mom, I know you wanted me off the street since I started. You wanted me to be like Simon the Safety Bear, so right? Not that Simon doesn't have a hard job, but we were kind of shooting the breeze on what my new job would look like and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, well, that's great. I'm happy to hear that. And everything was good. And it's like, yep, I start in March, but I got to go back to work tomorrow. So I'm going to get to bed here now and whatever. Started 6 the next morning. So got up, went to work the next day, went to have a coffee with 2903 and left and getting ready to leave. And we're just kind of talking outside of the car and my phone rang and I saw it was my mom and I'm like, I have a hard time getting my mom to phone when I'm off duty, right? Because she's like, oh, you're so busy. And I'm like, Mom, if I'm busy, I won't answer, right? So I'm like, well, she's phoning, which is weird. And then she's phoning me when I'm at work. Right. So I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to like this call. So, of course, when I phoned, she was in hysterics because unbeknownst to me at that very moment, Dad was passing away and the medics were at the house. So, and she's telling me all this and my brain is like racing. And I'm like, Kate, I'll be right there. And so I hung up and said to but my partner, duty staff, I go, I got to go. And she's like, oh, everything okay? And I go, my dad just died. And she's like, what? And she's like, do you need me to take over? And I'm like, no. It was one of those things where it's like, had I got in the car, I would have seen, as I normally do when I go back in the car, check all the boards and all the rest, because I was in a 2900 spot that day, check to see what everyone's doing and if there's anything big had come up on CAD or any messages. So I would have probably seen that there was a 7-district call on the board or a unit already on the way to my parents' house, right? And it would have just been like, right? So I'm just like, so put it in drive and away I went, and I got to the house and saw the EMS van pulled up in front and went inside. And of course, needless to say, Mom is not, she's doing badly, right? I mean, they've been married 65 years, right? And this is awful. And she's like, your dad's dead. And the medics are still there. And I'm like, it was just at that time where I'm like, who would have ever thought this was going to happen? We just talked last night, right? And it wasn't about the cancer that we thought would have been the thing that was the, so I talked to the medics a bit and I'm like, can you tell me a little bit what happened? And they're like, yeah, it probably was a cardiac event or something. And I said, so it was fast? And they're like, yep, it would have been fast. And that I'm like, okay. And so it's like, I'm like, I got to stay on focus here, right? Because my sister calls and she's a mess. And so I'm like, I got to stay on task here because I know what's going to happen now. I've been at these calls when it's other people. So I'm like, okay. So I just I thought I gotta go upstairs. So I went upstairs. I kind of looked in, saw my dad. It's just like, okay. And no one imagines that you're going to be standing in the house that you grew up in, right? And it's like,
yeah.
It's
So anyway, it just took me a second there, but it's just one of those things where you just don't think that that's going to happen. But I think what happened after that is like, okay, well, I'm going to get this organized.
You kind of go into police mode.
Go into police mode, right? You kind of go into that mode. And so you kind of do all that stuff. And so all that kind of gets done. I'm telling my mom, here's what's going to happen. Body removal is going to come. They're going to, do all this and that. That happens. And after a while I'm talking and I kind of looked out my front window and I'm like, I see 1701 is still there, right? And I knew 1701 because they'd been in the kitchen. I knew it was Rich Mascot. So I phoned him up and I'm like,
solid guy.
So I'm like, Rich, everything cool out there? And he's like, no, I'm just sticking around in case you need anything. And I'm like, dude, that's awesome. And again, that's one of those things where it's like, I never would have thought of that. I told him like 45 minutes earlier, I'm good. But just that sort of like second level of trust where it's like, I'm going to stick around anyways, as I probably would do if I was in a similar situation, right? And I'm like,
you think you're good? You're going in police mode? Yeah. Right?
And I'm like, that blows me away, buddy. But I said, I'm telling you, we are good. I know you have a district to run. You're good to go. And
I know him very well. So I worked with him downtown on the beats for quite a long time. And he is as good as they come. And he's a very caring awesome person.
Yeah.
I think that's it's such a meaningful and an incredible story that demonstrates, like sometimes we have to just go into work mode, even when it's the hardest for us to do personally, but it also demonstrates just the amount of genuine care and compassion that we have for each other, even when you aren't expecting it.
That was like almost a year ago. That was last January. So probably in September, we were like planning, and Mom was going to move out of the house and stuff. She made that decision. We're going to, move. I can't stay here. It was a 4-level split. Like, not a great house she'd broken her hip as well in the middle of all this. Like, just, we need to get you out of this house, Mom, kind of thing, right? So we were kind of going through that process, and she had looked at a place, and I called her to talk to her about something one night and dialed the home number, and I knew when unknown number comes up, Mom won't answer it. So I'm expecting that this first go around, it'll ring 4 times and I'll call back right away and she'll know that it's me. So I dialed the phone and it rings and it rings and then it goes to voicemail. But my dad's recording comes on. I kid you not. He comes on and starts saying, "You've reached the Neilsons," whatever. And I'm sitting there listening and I'm looking at my wife and I'm like, click. Like, I hung up. I'm just like, my wife's like, "Was that your dad?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like,
Oh, that's
she's like, "That was so
goosebumps,
weird."
yeah.
So weird. She's like, "Call it back." So I called it back.
And
It was my mom, like my mom's voicemail recording. And I'm just like, whew. And like I said, she was my witness. Like, it wasn't just me imagining that. It was just definitely that. And I was just like, this is creeping me out. Like, my hair on my arms was just like,
mine is right now.
was straight up. Everyone says, "Oh yeah, they come in dreams," and that hadn't happened.
this is different.
9
You're
months.
conscious. You're awake.
Yeah, right? And that was really weird. Even when I told my sister, of course, I call her and tell her, and she's like, "You hung up on Dad?" And I'm like, I didn't hang up on him. Like, we weren't, like, it was really weird, right? And even my mom was like, wow, you must be saying that's good, good to be wanting to buy this house. And I'm like, yeah, but it was just like crazy weird. So
We'll have to do an episode one time of like police ghost stories because I think we all have
that's an interesting one.
It was without question. If I had any doubts before, and I'm always one of those believers that, there's something else out there kind of thing, but it was one of those things where I was just like, I couldn't probably, and I've called Mom's number probably 100 times since then, just to see if that might happen.
Never does.
Never does. She said
amazing.
his voice has been off the recording for probably 10 years. So
That's so wild.
weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing those really personal stories. I hope that some people that are listening, whether CPS members or people who are potentially interested in policing, learn something about, maybe this is a career for them as well, just from the stories that you told. So thank you for being here.
Thanks very much.
Rock and roll.
Thank you
for having
so
me.
much. It was great.
Thank you.
Awesome.